Okay, good evening, everybody. Here we are in the Rebbe's Shul with the thousands of Mishtatfim and the international Shir of Limud Rambam and Hilchas Beis Habechirah. Okay, now, I have these pictures. This is the Mizbeach.
That's true.
Okay, Rabbi Sai.
This one of these also?
Yeah, well, that's the book. Yeah, we're holding Perek Beis, Halacha Tes. Perek Beis Halacha Tes. Okay. Now I'll start with this. The Mizbeach had unusual amis, right? We know that an amma, this is machlekes in Shas about this, but an amma is 6 tefachim. An amma is 6 tefachim, which is a little bit more than 3 inches, because 6 tefachim is 19 3/8 inches. So rechnen 3/8 plus 8/8 is 11/8. Yeah, so it's be'erech 3 inches and a quarter. Every tefach has 3 inches and a quarter. Times 6, that happen 19 inches and a half, and it's 19 inches and 3/8. It's a little bit less. So a tefach is approximately 3 inches and a quarter, 3.25 inches. Be'erech, a little bit less. Most of the amis in the Beis Hamikdash were bas shisha tefachim. The Mizbeach had amis bas chamisha tefachim, had shorter amis. 2 of those amis were going up, and 2 of those amis were going in. The result of this is the following, and this is the point that's negated to today's class. The Mizbeach was 10 amis high, 10 hand breadths. It was 10 times 19 3/8 inches. That means it was 193 inches, 194 inches. How many feet is 194 feet? It's 16 feet. It's more than 16 feet. It was very tall. However, 2 of those ames were only 5 tefachim. So the Mizbeach was not 60 tefachim high, it was 58 tefachim high. Which means of the 16 feet, you have to take off about a half a foot. So it's 15.5 feet. Which parts of the Mizbeach had shorter ames? The very bottom and the very top. The Yesoid. So I gave you 2 sides. On both sides you have pictures. Yeah? So let's look at this side. It's a little bit larger. Yeah, I mean the people on the internet are not able to see all the pictures. It's a little larger. This is called the foundation. This is called the keren. So the bottom here, this was only 5 tefachim here, which means instead of it being 19 inches, it was about 16 inches. And the kronis was only 5. So the height of the Mizbeach is 10 amis, but in tefachim it's not 60, it's 58. Including the keren. Yeah, the keren is the 10th amma. L'may nafkemina, there's a very important nafkemina. Because in the Mizbeach there was something called chut shel sikra. Chut shel sikra means a thread of red. In the Mishkan they also had the chut shel sikra. It was called the seireg. Which was a copper design that was made to look intricate, and it demarked the halfway point on the Mizbeach. Why is that so important? Because in Karbonis, there's something called domim elyonim and domim tachtenim, the higher bloods and the lower bloods. In the karbonis, there's something called higher bloods and lower bloods. Damim elyonim and damim tachtenim. The higher bloods and the lower bloods. For example, a korban chatos, behema, an animal chatos, the blood will put on the corners. If you put it underneath the waist, the girdle, the gatla, there's veich, it's possible. A korban eila, and a korban shlamim, and a korban asha, and a korban verschiedene karbonis. What am I missing? The blood was sprinkled below this girdle. If you sprinkled it above, it was possible. By birds, it was faket. Chatas ha'oif, if you had a chatas of a bird, the blood was beneath this gartel, beneath this chut sikra, and oilas ha'oif was above this chut sikra. So there's a lot of serious halachas that have to do with what's called damim elyonim, the higher bloods and the lower bloods, and there was a physical red line painted all around the mizbeach that demarked the halfway point of the mizbeach. The halfway point of the mizbeach is 29 tfachim. Why? Because 58 divided by 2 is 29. So the number of inches, the number of tfachim of the mizbeach is not just important because you have to make it to a certain size. It's important you have to know what's the midway point, what's the gartel, what's the chigeres, what's the avnei, the girdle around the mizbeach that separate the damim ha'oyenim from damim tachtenim. And you have to be careful that bloods that are supposed to be below the chut hasika couldn't be sprayed above it, and so on. So we read inside. We already read halacha ches, and I want to read the last couple of lines of halacha ches. I'm not reading the whole halacha ches. I'm on page mem aleph. If you have my copies, I'm on page mem aleph. I want to read the last 2 lines of halacha ches. Nimsas that comes out like this: Chatzi geva hamizbeach chavtes tefachim. Half the height of the mizbeach is 29 tefachim. Miseif hasevev ulamata. From beneath the sevev. The sevev means the area that the kohanim would walk around and downward. And therefore the Rambam says in halacha tes, v'chut shel sikra, there was a red thread, there was a line of red, it was painted. And you want to think of it as a gartel, just like you have a gartel that separates the lower half of the body and the upper half of the body, or however we do it, a third, 2/3. So the mizbeach had a gartel of red paint. Girdled, it said gegartelt, it tied the mizbeach. Kishisha tefachim, approximately 6 handbreadths, in other words, 1 amo. Miseifa sevel lamata, below the area that the kohanim circled. Lahavdil bein damim ha'oyenim l'dam matachtein, separate the higher bloods and lower bloods. Because you look at your picture. If you look at your picture, look at this one here. This is 5 tefachim. This is 30 tefachim. How much is 5 and 30? 35. Half is 29. How much is 35 minus 29? 6. So this line, I don't think is properly apportioned. This line was about 6 tefachim beneath this. This area here, this platform here is called the seviv. The kohanim used to walk around on that seviv. When they had to put blood on the horns, on the edges, they walked on the seviv. This is 3 amas. I can't hear you. No, there's blood on the bottom. They sprinkled from the floor. But by a korban chatos, where they had the blood that to go on top, there was a special ramp that led them to this seviv. And they would say it every morning. All of Akevesh, Fanala Seve, Valal Kerdemis, Mizrachis, Mirachas, Fenis, Maravas. They would circle on this here, and the horn is about 5 feet above. Basically eye level to the kohen. As the kohen would circle, 3 amis is about 5 feet. More than a little bit than 5 feet. You understand? So as the kohen would circle, he would put with his finger the blood. It wasn't Hazoyas Adam. It was Matan Domim. He didn't sprinkle the blood. He would place it with his finger. So that's what this chut hasikra was. And if you see on this side, they made it a little bit more ornate. The picture is smaller, but you can see how they made the girdle. Okay? And we continue to read. And of course, Api Kabbalah, Api Chasidus, this is very significant. You know, the lower half of tefillah and the higher half of tefillah.
Can I ask a question?
At your own risk.
You said something about the birds being different.
Yeah, they're backwards. Yes.
Is it the type of korban, meaning
Yeah.
the name of the korban, not the animal itself,
Sure,
that
sure.
differentiates whether it's upper blood or lower blood?
No, chatos habehema was daimim milyonim. Chatos ha'oif was damim tachtonim.
No matter what the reason.
Doesn't make a difference. Oilas behema was damim tachtonim. Oilas ha'oif was damim elyonim. It was backwards.
So it would be for the same reason, but if it's a different animal, it goes to different.
Correct. Right. And then you ask why, and the answer is I don't know. Halacha Yud. Now this is also very important for you to see on your floor plan. Look at this side, please. Here you have a floor plan, which means a two-dimensional picture here, this here. I'm showing it to the people online. It's not enough time for them to process it. I don't have the technology to send them the pictures. This is a two-dimensional image of the base of the Mizbeach. Notice that you have a bunch of boxes, one outside the next. You have one box, then a second box, and then a third box, and then a fourth box, and then a fifth box. The three innermost boxes are all on top of the Mizbeach. Because you'll see in the third one, you have the black squares represents the kronis. Why? Because there was the area of the kronis themselves, and there was the area inside where the kohanim walked around, and then there was the area of the ma'aracha, which was chav dalad ames al chav dalad ames, or 4 times 12 by 12, like it's written in the book of Yechezkel. The second outermost box is called the Seiviv. That's where the Kohanim walked around to put the Damachatos. The outer one is Yesod, and see that it doesn't make a complete circle. It's not a perfect square, it's only on 2 sides. Now the way this picture is designed is according to the Shitas HaRambam. Other Rishonim hold that it would wrap around on the other 2 sides as well. But the point is, the area of the Mizbeach, flat, was 32 amas by 32 amas. But the kevesh, the ramp, leaned up against the Mizbeach. And when the kevesh reached up against the Mizbeach, it touched the very top of the Mizbeach. Naturally, it was in an angle. I don't understand.
Didn't they walk in that area?
There's 2 things. There's the kevesh and there's the seiviv. The seiviv they walked around. The kevesh is the ramp. The kevesh went all the way up to the top of his Mizbeach. So if you look at this picture, for example. Look at this picture. Look at this picture here. There's a number of layers to the Mizbeach. Here's the Yesod. Here is the seiviv. The kevesh climbs till the top of the Mizbeach. So it eats up on the southern side, on the Durham side, 2 amas of the Mizbeach itself. Why? Because since the kevesh goes flush with the top of the Mizbeach, so it's sort of eating at the space of the Yesod and the Yesod, the very bottom and the middle platforms of the Mizbeach. But the bottom platform did not make a full hakafa. It didn't make a full circling around the entire Mizbeach. It was only on 2 sides, or it was on 2 sides and it draped around on the other 2 sides as well. And there were reasons why. And the Rambam is now going to spell it out. You say that Mizbeach, the foundation of the Mizbeach, Lo yhoye makif me'arba ruchesav kamei haseviv. It didn't circle the Mizbeach from all 4 sides like the walkway did. Ella, but rather the following is true. HaYesed Moshoch Keneged Kol Ruach Tzafim. The entire northern side had foundation. Umaravi, the entire western side, that means the area closest to the Beis Hamikdash, had foundation. However, Ve'echel B'Darim HaMa'achas, on the southern side it was only 1 handbreadth. U'B'Mizrach HaMa'achas, and in the east had only 1 corner, 1 foot, 1 cubit, 1 handbreadth. Ve'Keren, the name is Mizraches, Lo HaYesed. So the southeastern corner had no foundation at all. So you have a box and another box. The way I described it last week, imagine you make a birthday cake, but you make it square. And you make it layers on top of layers, but you make them thinner and thinner as you rise. The outermost birthday cake is 32 amas by 32 amas. The second one is 30 amas and 2 tfachim by 30 amas and 2 tfachim. The third one is 28 amas and 4 tfachim by 28 amas and 4 tfachim. But the bottom cake, which was 32 by 32, two sides were missing. An amma. So it was an area, theoretically, it was Lamed Beis Ammo. Lamed Beis Amma. Theoretically, it was a perfect square, 32 cubits by 32 hand breadths, amas, by 32 amas. But on two sides of the Mizbeach, the Yesod was missing. Okay? Then he adds another thing. And you could see this in your picture. You can see it. You can see it in this picture here. Up here, look, this picture here. And you can also see it here. Okay? Ubekeren Maravis Dremis. In the southwestern corner, there were two nostrils, and they were in the Yesod, they were not in the Keren. Like two thin nostrils. They were called sheetin. And they were hollow, they were like pipes. The blood would fall into these little nostrils. And they would get mixed together in that corner. Ba'ama. Amma means a stream of water, like a little river that ran underneath the Beis Hamikdash, and the bloods would go underneath the Mizbeach, under the ground, and they would mix with this water that was in this stream. They went out to a river, Kidron, which was to the east of Yerushalayim, to the east of the Beis Hamikdash. You see, they used to pour blood on the Mizbeach all the time. Now, I never saw a picture of the Mizbeach. You know why? It's been a while since we had one. We all have depictions, they make models, but in my image, they were constantly spraying blood on the Mizbeach, a whole day spraying blood. Nobody ever told me this, but I suspect that the Yesod had a bit of a drainage. In other words, even though it was supposedly a rectangle, it was designed in such a way that the blood would go down a drain, basically. These two holes were essentially a drain. So at the Mizbeach, the Beis Hamikdash should be full of blood. They probably had more than one drain. But on the Yesod itself, they had these two holes, and the bloods that they sprinkled on the Mizbeach, wherever they sprinkled them, at least some of those bloods would find their way into these two nostrils. They were like a drain. And they would flow into these two little holes, and then from these two holes they would go beneath the Mizbeach. Under the Mizbeach, there was this water flowing from the top of the Harabayis down into the valley, and they would carry the bloods away into Nachal Kidron. That's how it was. Now, of course, one of the things that's interesting to point out was that they used to have what was called Nisach Hayayin, right? They poured wine on the Mizbeach when they had special karbonis. Sukkot, they had also Nisach Hamayim. How did they do this? On top of the Mizbeach, they would put two safolim. A safol means what would you call it? A mashpech. What's a mashpech? A funnel. It was wide at the top, narrow at the bottom, and they would pour the water and the wine at the same time. One hole was bigger, the wine hole was bigger, the water hole was a little bit smaller, so they should both empty at the same rate. But there was no hole on top of the Mizbeach. When they poured the wine and the water into this safalim, they would go down the side. There was no hole on top. They would go down the side of the Mizbeach. They would cascade down off the side of the Mizbeach, then cascade down the wall of the Seviv, and they would end up in these two nostrils that we just described. That's how it was designed. So the holes were on the bottom of the Mizbeach, not on top of the Mizbeach. They poured it on top into these two beakers, into these two safalim funnels, and then it would spill over the side, it would make its way to the bottom, and at the bottom there were these two holes which acted as the drain. Now, while we're talking about this Nachal Kidron, I want to mention this to you.
Then they must have put it in a certain spot where the leg
It was directly above it. It was directly above these two nostrils. It was Keren Dremis Ma'arov. That's where they did it. Right. But in my imagination, it wasn't an exact science. You have to figure that there was a mess that had to clean up. The Mishnah describes, we say it in the Erev Pesach, the Korban Pesach, they had to clean the Azorah. It was a messy place. And the way they cleaned the Azorah was, they didn't use the holes. They would stuff the outlet of this Nachal, this river, and the waters would rise. And the whole Azorah, which was made of solid stone, would be filled with water like a pool. And they had special brooms. And then they would drain it out. And everything would be washed down and would go down into this drainage. That's how they wash their floors.
They washed their floors
Yeah.
and they had these drains.
Yeah. We once had an Israeli who moved into an apartment above us, and they just poured a bucket of water on the floor, and it came raining down to our floor, because we don't have stone floors in America like in Israel. They have stone floors. Okay? But I want to say this. The blood from Karbonis was it was a lot. And it was the best fertilizer. It's organic matter. It's very, very good to fertilize a field. And it was washed out of the Beis Hamikdash. It went from the stream into a river called Kidron. And I don't know the direction of Nachal Kidron, but there was actually a river near Yerushalayim which would be flooded every day with waste of a carbon that was very useful for people who were farmers, but it was kachim, it was sacred. And if they would have enough from it to be even on Me'ilah, which is a big Aveda, so they used to purchase it. They would pay the Beis HaMikdash for the rights after the blood would wash out. And it wasn't just blood, there was all kinds of entrails, chveis. I mean, not everything was, whatever was washed out, the people would pay for it. The people who had fields near this river would purchase the rights to this fertilizer, for this zeva, and they'd put it on their fields. And it was a good fertilizer. So the Beis Hamikdash was used till the last inch. What they threw away, they also profited from. The Beis Hamikdash benefited from. Okay, halacha Yud Beis. If you want a copy of the Rambam, they're sitting right there. Okay. Okay, it's hard for me to read also. I have my glasses on. In that corner, the southwestern corner of the Mizbeach, where they had these two shittim, I imagine it as a drain, where the blood would drain underneath the Beis HaMikdash. There was an area in the Hazara, which was a square amma, in other words, about 18 or 19 inches square. V'tavla shel shayis, and there was a marble slab on this square. V'tavas kvuah with a ring. In other words, they were able to lift it up. Shebeyed in the shitin, which allowed them to go down under the mizbeach into this plumbing system that was used as drainage. Umenaka makes it to clean it. Blood is very thick, and blood also congeals. And if these pipes, if these drains would become stuffed, it would back up. So right near where the drain was, there was a special, it was a way to climb down in a small little narrow passageway, and they would be able to clean out these pipes from the bottom so that the flow of blood should be free, and it shouldn't get stuffed, and it shouldn't chas v'shalom back up. You understand? This is how it was designed. That's right. It's part of the design of the Beis Hamikdash. Disposal. Very important. Noach built a teva. I remember as a child marveling. 3 floors. The 3rd floor was Zevel. How much garbage?
You know that there was a place, it's a religious goyim, built according to the descriptions in the Torah, a life-size model of Noah's Ark. And it's an exhibition for families.
Right. Where is it?
It's, I don't know if it's the Philadelphia, it's they've gotten a tremendous amount of criticism from, these left groups. I saw a video about it that made me feel weird. They showed pictures.
Why? What's the criticism? What's the criticism?
They don't like it that they're doing
Okay.
things with animals and the animals there. They're not using the animals.
Sure.
They show everything like it was in the tape. It's very big. Whole day you can't tour the whole thing in one day.
Okay, halacha Yud Gimel. Next halacha. V'kevesh, there was a ramp. Now I'm going to preempt and make things clear. There were actually 3 ramps. The Mizbeach didn't have 1 ramp. The Mizbeach had to have 3 ramps because you had to go to different locations. V'kevesh hayabonu l'dreimish HaMizbeach. On the southern side of the Mizbeach there was a ramp. Orkei shleisha mishtayim amma. Its length, and its length means its length of floor area, not its length of the angle. I mean, I understand geometry very little. But if you have 32 amas of floor area and an incline, which is about a little less than 1 to 3, this angle is going to be much more than 32. It'll be 35 or 36. Last year we had over here people who knew geometry. When you say that the kevish was 32 amas, it means 32 amas of floor area, vertically. So the angle was a little bit more. Its length was 32 cubits, handbreadths. And its width was 16 handbreadths. In other words, half the width of the Mizbeach. And it only ate up 30 handbreadths of floor area, not 32. Why? Because one handbreadth was the area of the Yesod, the circumventing platform. Another handbreadth on the area where the foundation was. A Yesod means the foundation, Seviv means the circumventing platform. So, if you're looking at this picture, this is the best picture we have of it, yeah? The ramp from here to here is 32, but it was only 30 amas of floor area, because the am of the Yesod and am of the Seviv was shared by the Mizbeach and the Kevish. In other words, floor area, the Mizbeach took up 62 amas by 32 amas, not 64. Even though Mizbeach was 32 and the Kevish was 32, but two of the 32 amas of the Kevish, it shared with the 32 amas of the Mizbeach. So the total area of the Mizbeach and the Kevish together is not 64, it is 62 amas. Now I want to do something now. So it won't take long. Okay, there's not that many of you, so please, everyone take a copy of this page. I'm sorry? So do it anyway. Anabade. The Rogatchover was once told that he should give somebody a bracha. So the Rogatchover said, I'm not a Rebbe. So they told the Rogatchover, the Gemara says that Al Tehi Birchas Hedyet, Kala. Don't treat the bracha of an ordinary person as Kala. So he said, if a bracha of a regular person is not Kala, the bracha of a Gadol B'Yisrael is a Kal V'Chomer, then it's a bracha. So the Rogatchover said, you give the bracha, we won't need the Kal V'Chomer. On the Kal V'Chomer. If you're looking at this picture, you have to understand, from the edge of the Mizbeach, if you look up at my pen, and I don't have the right kind of pointers, I also don't have the right kind, the picture is too small. From here until here, edge to edge, is 62 amas, 62. It's not 64, it's only 62. You have to understand, from this wall, on this wall, the entire area of the Azara is 135 amas. How much is 135 divided by 2? Huh? 135 is 67 and a half. 67 and 67 is 134, yeah? 67 and a half is half. So this Mizbeach, which is 62, is almost half the width of the Azara across. So the picture is not to scale. You understand? The picture you're looking at is actually smaller than its actual size. Because if you understand that 62... If 60, what did I tell you before? 67 and a half is half the width, and this is 62. So it's 4.5 amas short of being half the width of the Azara. In this picture, it's probably a third or less. So you have to understand that this picture is not to scale, and it's not to scale for two reasons. Number one, the Kevish was a lot closer to the wall than this picture depicts. And number two, it almost covered the entire entrance. Almost the entire front of the Mizbeach, Beis Hamikdash is covered by the Mizbeach. Because you have to understand, this is 70. This is 100. This is here 100 here. Which means over here you have 17 and a half amas, over here you have 17 and a half amas. 17 and a half plus 15 is 32 and a half. Yeah? 32 and a half leaves you another 30. This would be, 30 would be 20 and 10. So if the Mizbeach was all the way to the wall, it would be halfway across the front of the Beis Hamikdash. But the Kevish was not all the way to the wall. It was moved away from the wall a few amas. So the Mizbeach, first of all, again, I'm telling you two things. Number one, it's larger than the picture depicts. And number two, it almost covered the entire front of the Beis Hamikdash. In other words, it almost was completely, and not completely, there would be one amma difference away from the center of the Beis Hamikdash. So the picture doesn't do it justice. These hooks and tables and rings were further this way. And there's an exact, you'll see in a later Pedic, the exact cheshbon, but the Mizbeach was larger than you see in this picture, and it covered a lot more of the front of the Beis Hamikdash, or a little bit more of the front of the Beis Hamikdash, than the picture depicts. And I gave you this picture because I wanted you to see this. Okay, I think it's important to have a sense of scale and visualization. And we read on.
Where do you get all these measurements from?
The Rambam is going to say it in Perek Dalet. The Rambam is going to say it in Perek Dalet Halacha Hey. You can look yourself.
Because I'm wondering if the third Beis Hamikdash is coming down already prepared already from heaven, why are the measurements for such an important thing?
Oh, we don't learn it to know how to build it. We learn it because learning it is building it. You were in here last week. The Rebbe has a nesiche. Normally we say kol ha'esek b'teira ki'ilu. You learn the Torah of a carbon. It's as if you brought a carbon. The Rebbe brought a from a posuk and a medrash that learning about the Beis Hamikdash is not ki'ilu. It's lo yehei binyan Beis Yichorev. Learning about building the Beis Hamikdash is building it b'poyel. There's a pasuk to this effect, and there's a medrash. So we're not learning it to know how to do it. But the third Beis Hamikdash is very different than this one. We're learning it because la yehei binyan Beis Yichorev. They shouldn't, that the building of the Beis should not be interrupted. When we're learning about it, we're actually building it. No. Okay, I told you something incorrect. The distances that I gave you are not in Perek Dalet. Yeah. It's in Perek Hey, Halacha Yud Gimel Yudalid Tezvov. There was 12 and a half amas. There were 12 and a half amas here, on this side. 12 and a half and 30 and 32 is equal. 62 is, and 12 and a half is 74 and a half. 74 and a half is, and the whole area is 135. Now if you take away, let's say 75, you take away 75 from 30, only 60. There's only 60 amas here. This is 17 and a half, and this is 15, and this is 20. So the Mizbeach, 17 and a half, and 15 is 32 and a half, 20 is 52. The Mizbeach was past the entrance. The Mizbeach was past the entrance. The Mizbeach went all the way till here. If you have over here 12 and a half plus 30 plus 32, the Mizbeach extended all the way beyond till here, Berech. Beyond the entire entrance, the Mizbeach blocked the entire front of the Beis Hamikdash. Couldn't see it. And we read Halacha v'haltmir Halacha. We're in the middle of Yud Gimel, yes? There was a small space between the ramp and the Mizbeach itself. The ramp and the Mizbeach didn't touch. There was a space, there was a crack. The crack wasn't 6 inches, it was a little crack. But it was big enough for an object which is round to be wedged in there so it shouldn't roll. Not the meat, they put meat on the Mizbeach with pieces. It wasn't rectangular, it was round and it would tumble. So there was a little crack, and that's where they put the meat so it would sit still. Then they would put salt on it, and there was an interesting halacha that just like the blood was sprayed, the meat was sprayed. They didn't put the meat on the maracha, they threw it on the maracha. And then they put it on this little crack. Okay? I need to hear you again, please. The Kohanim went through training before they were given work. And the Kohanim didn't work very often in the Beis Hamikdash unless they were Kohen Gadol. The justification for the Kohanim's fitness, readiness for doing the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash is only one thing. Kohanim zrizim heim, they're quick learners. You know, one of the things that you have to imagine, the Azara was full of blood. And the Kohanim's clothing couldn't have a speck. And they were clean. Because they had such alacrity, they're so efficient. The Chazal say everything about Kahuna is quick, including their personalities. Kohanim zrizim heim, they did it correctly. Okay, next halach. V'geva hakefesh teisha ames pochot shtus. The height of the ramp is 9 ames minus 1/6. What's the cheshbon of minus 1/6? Because the bottom amma was only 5 tvachim. So it's not 54 tvachim, it's 53 tvachim. Ad keneged amaracha, and the top of the ramp, if this is the top of the Mizbeach, the ramp went till here. No, but then it was removed a little bit. I'm sorry, you were saying, you started saying something. No.
As a only child, I had such a hard time putting his clothing on. He was so quick.
I gotta tell you that Kohanim don't have hyperactivity is not Kohanim exclusive. They come in all shapes and sizes and genders. Yeah. I hear you. Halacha Yadalet. Ushnei kvoshim ktanim. There were 2 lesser ramps. Yetzim mimeno that went from the primary ramp. One on this side and one on this side. Shabehem painim liyasedu l'seviv. One of those ramps led to the foundation of the Mizbeach, and the other one of the ramp led to the circumnavigating platform that the Kohanim used to walk on to put the dam chatas. Umivdalim and Mizbeach and Leinima, they were also separate from the Mizbeach a hair. So now, if you have your pictures, if you look at these 2 pictures, you can see these 2 secondary ramps. In this ramp, this picture, and you know, you can debate these pictures. In this picture, you're seeing the west. This is west. And this is east. So in this picture, you can see the western secondary ramp. And in this picture, you can see the eastern secondary ramp. The eastern secondary ramp went from the floor, and instead of going to the top of the Mizbeach, it went to the Seviv. The Kohen would walk here and they'd be able to walk around. The western secondary ramp, they made it as 2 steps, down and then down again, facing west and then facing north, south and then north. And the point was it would go from the top of the Mizbeach to this lower corner, because they oftentimes had to spill the Shirei Adam, the leftover blood, had to go on the bottom of the Mizbeach. So when they finished making the circle, they would go down that secondary ramp and go to the foundation to pour the leftover blood. The western side of the primary ramp had a window. A window basically means a shelf. There was no glass. It was an opening. Amma alama. There was a handbreadth by a handbreadth, and you have to assume that there was also a handbreadth in. Revuva hoisen ekras. It was called revuva. Revuva means a window. Shabon neis nipsulich ataseif. In this little window, they would place the birds of Korban Chatas that became puzzle. Because when the bird of the Korban Chatas became puzzle, they couldn't take it out of the Beis Hamikdash until its time passed. until it became decomposed. But uber is a bit of a misnomer. Uber means that it rotted. But it didn't have to rot. It had to just wait for the sun to set. Because once the sun set, there was no longer a time for the chata. So it was the equivalent of uber tzedasa. But technically it means that the bird had to sit there till it rotted. V'teitze lebeis hasreifa, then it was taken out of the Beis Hamikdash and it was burnt. Now in none of my pictures can you see this window. But it would have been here. In this picture here, you're seeing the Mizbeach. This is south, this is west. Against this side of the Kevesh, there was this window where they put the Psulei Chatois Ha'ef, and they stated Ach Ubatras, which basically means till night. Straight. Okay, questions or comments? It was a shelf. You can't have a window if you can't see through it, yeah? The Kevesh was 16 amas of solid rock. That means around 23 feet of stone. The window didn't go through and through. It was on one side. An amma this way, an amma this way, an amma deep. So it was a shelf, basically. It was a space, a cubby. And they would put certain birds that had become puzzle that you couldn't put on the Mizbeach because they were not fit for the Mizbeach. But you couldn't take them out of the Beis Hamikdash because they were too holy. And they would sit there until a certain time passed. Then they would take them out and bring them to a different place and burn them. That's all. You understand? Let's learn one more halacha and then we'll stop, okay? On the western side of the ramp there were two tables. Echad shel shayish, one was made of marble. Which they placed the organs of the behemoth that God was bech. Because shayish, marble, is stone, and it's naturally cooler than the environment, and it kept the meat a little bit fresher. The echad shel kesef, the other table was made of silver, sheneistim alav kli shadas, on which they placed the vessels of service. So now, if you look at your picture, you can see. Look at this picture here. You can actually see the two tables. You see them? There were two tables. One table was made of marble where they put the meat in anticipation of carrying it up on the Mizbeach and throwing it al gabe ha'ishim. And the other was made of silver where they would keep the kalim that was necessary to avoid in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, we shall continue tomorrow night. Im Yirtzeh Hashem, thank you all for coming. I'll see you at Rabbi Paltiel in the morning also around 10.